Have you ever noticed that the moment you finally start loving yourself, people suddenly treat you differently? Your energy becomes calmer, your presence becomes stronger, and the same people who ignored you before now look at you with respect. Buddhism teaches a simple truth. When you love yourself correctly, the world has no choice but to follow your lead. Today, I'm going to show you 12 self-care Buddhist habits that will help you heal your mind, strengthen your heart, and become truly unstoppable, not by changing others, but by finally changing the relationship you have with yourself. 1. Treat yourself like someone worth taking care of. One of the most powerful Buddhist teachings reminds us that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot give love to the world if you have not yet learned to give love to yourself. But this is where most people struggle the most. They show kindness, patience, and understanding to everyone around them, yet when it comes to themselves, they become harsh, critical, and unforgiving. They will comfort a friend who makes a mistake, but destroy themselves mentally for the smallest error. They will encourage others to rest, breathe, and take breaks. But when they feel tired, they call themselves lazy. They support everyone else's dreams but doubt their own abilities. This imbalance slowly damages the heart and weakens the spirit, because every time you mistreat yourself, you teach your inner world that you do not matter. To love yourself, you must begin treating yourself with the same gentleness and compassion you naturally offer to those you care about. Imagine someone you love deeply, a sibling, a close friend, or even a child coming to you feeling broken, tired, or overwhelmed. Would you speak to them the way you speak to yourself? Would you tell them they are worthless, weak, or not good enough? Of course not. You would comfort them, reassure them, guide them, and remind them of their strengths. This is exactly how you must learn to speak to your own soul. Every time you choose rest over burnout, you affirm that your body deserves care. Every time you forgive yourself for a mistake and treat it as a lesson instead of a failure, you teach your mind resilience. Every time you nourish your heart instead of neglecting your emotional needs, you strengthen your spiritual foundation. And every time you show yourself patient understanding rather than self-hate, you send a powerful message to your inner world. You matter. You deserve peace. You deserve kindness. You deserve love. When your inner self finally feels valued, something profound begins to change within you. Your confidence grows naturally, not from trying to impress anyone, but from understanding your own worth. Your energy becomes lighter and more radiant because you are no longer fighting yourself internally. Your motivation rises because you feel supported from within. Your decisions become clearer because your heart is no longer clouded with guilt and self-doubt. And your entire life begins to feel more peaceful, because when the relationship you have with yourself becomes gentle and compassionate, everything else in your world becomes easier to navigate. Treating yourself like someone worth taking care of is not selfishness. It is spiritual alignment. It is a promise to yourself that you will not abandon your own heart. And when you finally make that promise, your whole life begins to transform from the inside out. 2. Create quiet moments to hear your true self. In a world filled with noise, expectations, responsibilities, and endless distractions, your mind rarely gets the space it needs to breathe. Most people live their entire lives surrounded by sound notifications, conversations, entertainment, worries, and the constant pressure to keep moving. But Buddhism teaches a deeply transformative truth. Without silence, you cannot hear your inner voice. Without stillness, you cannot understand your own heart. And without peaceful moments alone, you cannot truly know yourself. When you never pause, your mind becomes cluttered. You start reacting instead of thinking, surviving instead of living, and rushing instead of understanding. You lose connection with your own needs and emotions because the noise of the world is louder than the voice within you. This is why so many people feel lost, confused, overwhelmed, or disconnected from themselves. It is not because they are weak, It is because their inner voice has been buried under years of noise. Creating quiet moments is not about sitting still like a monk on a mountain. It is about giving yourself small pockets of peace throughout your day where you can simply exist without needing to do, fix, or respond to anything. Even 5 minutes of silence can begin shifting your entire life. When you sit in stillness, your breath slows down, your thoughts become clearer, the chaos inside you begins to settle, and your mind finally has the space to speak honestly. In silence, you start hearing truths you ignored for years. You realize what drains your energy, what hurts your heart, and what no longer belongs in your life. You discover what you truly want, not what others expect from you. You learn what needs healing, what needs attention, and what needs to be released. Silence becomes a mirror, showing you the parts of yourself you have been too busy to notice. Most people run away from quiet moments because they are afraid of facing themselves. They fear confronting their pain, their mistakes, their loneliness, or their insecurities. But Buddhism teaches that healing begins the moment you stop running from yourself. Your inner world is not your enemy. It is your guide, and it can only guide you when you give it space to speak. When you get comfortable with silence, something magical happens. Loneliness disappears. You begin enjoying your own company. You stop depending on constant noise to feel secure. Your presence becomes enough. Your thoughts become calmer. Your energy becomes softer. And the more connected you become with your inner world, the stronger and more confident you become in the outer world. Silence is not the absence of life. It is the doorway to understanding it. When you build the habit of creating quiet moments, you discover a version of yourself that has always been there, waiting patiently to be heard. And once you connect with that true self, you become unshakable. 3. Say no without feeling guilty. One of the most transformative acts of self-love is learning to say no without fear, without guilt, and without feeling like you owe anyone a long explanation. Most people are exhausted not because life is too hard, but because they have given their energy to people, plans, and responsibilities that were never aligned with their peace. They say yes to things they do not want. They agree to favors that drain them. They accept behavior that hurts them. And they carry emotional burdens that do not belong to them simply because they don't want to disappoint others. But Buddhism teaches that true compassion begins with yourself. You cannot protect your peace if you don't know how to protect your boundaries. Saying no is not a rejection of others, it is a declaration of your worth. It is the understanding that your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being are sacred, and not everyone or everything deserves access to them. People who lack boundaries often live in a constant state of inner conflict. They smile on the outside while their soul feels heavy. They help others while silently falling apart inside. They try to make everyone else happy while forgetting that they also have the right to feel safe, respected, and valued. When you say yes to everything, you slowly lose yourself. Learning to say no is a powerful act of spiritual alignment. It means you finally understand that you are not responsible for everyone's comfort or everyone's feelings. You are responsible for your own peace. You are responsible for your own healing. You are responsible for your own life. When you begin to set boundaries, some people may not understand it at first. They may be surprised, uncomfortable, or even upset, especially if they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. But the right people will respect your space. They will appreciate your honesty. They will value your need for emotional balance. And the ones who walk away were never meant to stay in your life. Saying no also teaches you the importance of choosing your energy wisely. Every yes you give takes something from your mental or emotional capacity. If you do not choose carefully, you end up using your energy on things that bring no growth, no joy, and no peace. Instead of focusing on what matters, you become trapped in obligations that drain your spirit. But when you begin to say no, you create space. Space for rest, for clarity, for personal growth, for genuine relationships, and for things that truly align with your path. And most importantly, saying no strengthens your relationship with yourself. Every time you honor your boundaries, your inner self feels protected. Every time you refuse something that disrespects your peace, your inner self feels valued. Every time you choose your well-being over unnecessary people-pleasing, your inner self feels stronger. Over time, this builds deep inner confidence because you finally start trusting yourself to protect your own heart. When you stop feeling guilty for saying no, your life becomes lighter. You stop carrying emotional weight that belongs to others. You stop trying to earn love by sacrificing your happiness. You stop giving away the parts of yourself that you need the most. And slowly, you begin to feel a freedom you may not have felt in years, the freedom to choose what is right for you. Saying no does not make you unkind or selfish. It makes you aware. It makes you balanced. It makes you strong. And when you master this habit, you reclaim your time, your energy, and your inner peace. That is true self-love. That is true power. 4. Stop comparing your journey to others. Comparison is one of the greatest sources of human suffering, yet it is also one of the easiest traps to fall into. In today's world, it has become almost natural for people to measure their worth against someone else's success, appearance, progress, or lifestyle. You look at others and feel like you're behind. You see someone achieving something, and suddenly your own achievements feel small. You see someone living a certain life and start questioning your own path. But Buddhism teaches a powerful truth. Comparison destroys peace, blocks gratitude, and blinds you from seeing your own blessings. No two people on this earth have the same journey. You were born with your own timing, your own tests, your own destiny, your own strengths, and your own lessons that no one else will ever experience in the same way. When you compare yourself to others, you disconnect from your own path. You stop listening to your heart. You start rushing your growth, doubting your value, and forcing yourself into timelines that were never meant for you. The flower that blooms later in the season is not less beautiful, it simply needed more time. The same applies to you. What you see in someone else's life is only the surface. People show the highlights but hide the struggles, show the victories but hide the battles, show the smiles but hide the nights of doubt and fear. You compare your entire reality to someone else's carefully filtered moment and then punish yourself for not being like them. This creates a constant sense of inadequacy. You start feeling like nothing you do is enough. You start thinking you are slow, unlucky, or falling behind. You stop appreciating how much you have already overcome, and slowly your self-love fades, replaced by silent self-criticism. But Buddhism teaches that everything in life is unfolding exactly as it should, not too fast, not too slow, but perfectly aligned with your soul's evolution. Every delay has a hidden lesson. Every setback has a hidden transformation. Every hardship is shaping you in ways that people may never see. Growth is not always visible. Some of your most powerful transformations happen quietly inside you, long before they show on the outside. When you stop comparing yourself, you begin noticing your own journey with fresh eyes. You recognize how strong you actually are. You realize how many challenges you survived that others know nothing about. You understand that your progress is not supposed to look like anyone else's because your destiny is not the same as theirs. You become more patient with yourself. You become more grateful for your own path. And most importantly, you begin to trust your life's timing instead of fighting it. Comparison also blocks your energy. When your focus is on someone else's success, you lose the ability to see your own potential. You waste mental space on what you don't have instead of using that energy to build what you want. You weaken your own confidence by magnifying someone else's achievements. But when you redirect that energy inward toward your goals, your healing, your growth, you become unstoppable. You begin creating your own life with clarity and purpose. And here is the deepest truth. When you stop comparing yourself, you start loving yourself. You stop judging your journey. You stop feeling behind. You stop rushing your life. You stop feeling like you must prove something. You begin living with peace in your heart and trust in your steps. You begin celebrating your uniqueness. You begin appreciating your strengths. And you begin recognizing that who you are becoming is far more important than how quickly you get there. Life is not a race. You are not competing with anyone. You are evolving at the pace your soul needs. You are exactly where you are meant to be. And when you truly accept this, the world feels lighter, the journey feels calmer, and your heart finally breathes freely. 5. Let go of people who don't value you. One of the most painful yet liberating forms of self-care is learning to let go of people who do not value you, respect you, or bring peace into your life. Most people hold on to relationships long after their soul has outgrown them, not because those relationships are healthy, but because the mind fears change, loneliness, or uncertainty. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering, and nowhere is this more obvious than in the relationships we refuse to release. When you cling to people who drain your energy, hurt your heart, or make you feel invisible, you are not practicing love, you are practicing self-abandonment. Many people stay connected to individuals who do not appreciate them simply because they hope those people will change. They hope someone will finally see their worth. They hope someone will treat them better one day. They hope someone will apologize, improve, or behave differently. But hope becomes a prison when it keeps you stuck in a relationship that destroys your peace. Wanting someone to value you will never make them value you. Loving someone deeply will never force them to love you back. And being loyal to someone who does not respect you will only leave your heart bruised and empty. The truth is simple. When someone truly values you, you feel it in their actions, not just their words. They do not disappear when things get difficult. They do not take your kindness for granted. They do not make you feel like you are asking for too much by wanting honesty, respect, consistency, or basic emotional care. People who value you bring clarity, not confusion. They bring peace, not anxiety. They bring sincerity, not excuses. And they bring effort, not temporary emotional bursts. Letting go of someone who doesn't value you does not mean you hate them or wish them harm. It means you finally choose yourself. You choose your peace over the chaos they bring. You choose your emotional health over the drama they create. You choose your self-worth over the pain of being constantly ignored, judged, or disrespected. And you choose your future over a connection that keeps you stuck in the past. Releasing someone you care about is not easy, especially when you shared memories, dreams, or emotional attachment. The mind resists letting go because it remembers everything that once felt good. But the heart knows when something is no longer right. The heart knows when it's time to detach, heal, and move forward. The heart whispers the truth long before the mind is ready to accept it. And when you finally listen to your heart, you begin the process of emotional liberation. Buddhism teaches that every relationship has a purpose. Some people enter your life to teach you love. Some come to teach you patience. Some appear to teach you strength. Some challenge you to set boundaries. And some remind you of who you never want to become. When someone has fulfilled their purpose in your story, holding on to them becomes a form of suffering. Letting them go becomes an act of freedom, wisdom, and deep self-respect. As you release people who do not value you, you make space for individuals who truly will. Healing relationships begin entering your life, relationships full of sincerity, respect, and emotional safety. Your circle becomes smaller but stronger. Your days become more peaceful. Your energy becomes lighter. And most importantly, you reconnect with the version of yourself you lost while trying to keep others who were never meant to stay. Letting go is an act of courage. It is choosing to walk away even when your heart is trembling. It is choosing peace even when pain tries to tie you down. It is choosing self-worth even when loneliness scares you. And it is choosing the life you deserve over the life you've outgrown. When you finally let go of those who don't value you, you step into a new chapter where your soul feels respected, your heart feels protected, and your spirit becomes unshakably strong. You do not lose anything by letting go of people who never truly valued you. You only lose the weight that was holding you down. And once that weight is gone, you rise higher than ever before. 6. Speak kindly to yourself, even in your hardest moments. Your inner voice is the most powerful force in your entire life. It is the voice you hear the most, the voice that shapes your beliefs, the voice that builds or destroys your self-confidence, and the voice that decides whether you rise or fall during difficult times. Buddhism teaches that the words you speak to yourself become the world you live in. Yet most people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone they love. They use words that wound their confidence. They judge themselves harshly. They magnify their weaknesses and ignore their strengths. They call themselves failures for making human mistakes. They punish themselves for things they would easily forgive in others. And without realizing it, their inner voice becomes their greatest source of suffering. Self-talk is not just language, it is energy. It shapes the way you see yourself, the way you act, the way you handle challenges, and the way you view your worth. Every negative thought you repeat to yourself becomes a belief, and every belief becomes a reality you start living. When you tell yourself, "I can't do this," your mind shuts down. When you say, "I always mess everything up," your confidence collapses. When you whisper, "I'm not good enough," a part of your soul becomes smaller. These are not harmless sentences, they are seeds planted inside your mind. And the more you repeat them, the deeper they grow. Most people expect themselves to be strong all the time. They believe that being hard on themselves will make them disciplined, responsible, or successful. But Buddhism teaches something very different. Healing does not grow in harshness. It grows in gentleness. True strength is not built through self-punishment. It is built through self-understanding. When life becomes difficult, you need your inner voice to support you, not attack you. You need your inner world to be a place of safety, not fear. You need your mind to be a home, not a battlefield. Speaking kindly to yourself does not mean avoiding responsibility or ignoring your flaws. It means responding to your flaws with wisdom instead of cruelty. It means replacing self-criticism with self-correction. It means acknowledging your mistakes without destroying your spirit. For example, instead of saying, "I'm so stupid," you can say, "I made a mistake, and I will learn from it." Instead of saying, "I'm a failure," you can say, "This didn't work out, but I will try a different way." Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," you can say, "I am growing, improving, and becoming better every day." These simple shifts in language change the entire emotional climate inside your mind. When you speak kindly to yourself, your nervous system relaxes, your fear decreases, your confidence grows, your ability to take action increases, your mind stops fighting itself, and suddenly everything becomes easier. You begin to respond to challenges with calmness instead of panic. You begin to treat yourself like a human being instead of a machine. You begin to build a connection with yourself based on compassion instead of pressure. And slowly, your inner world transforms into a place of safety, strength, and clarity. Speaking kindly to yourself is especially important during your hardest moments. When you are stressed, tired, overwhelmed, heartbroken, or confused, your inner voice becomes the only voice you can fully hear. If that voice becomes cruel, you sink deeper into pain. If that voice becomes gentle and supportive, you rise above the pain with strength. It is during your darkest days that your inner dialogue matters the most. Anyone can be confident when life is easy. But true self-love appears when life tests you, when you choose to hold yourself softly instead of breaking yourself further. Your mind believes whatever you tell it repeatedly. If you tell it you are weak, it will accept that. If you tell it you are unworthy, it will believe that. But if you tell it you are capable, growing, healing, improving, learning, and evolving, it will begin to reshape your identity to match those words. This is not magic. This is psychology. This is spirituality. This is the power of compassion directed inward. The more kindly you speak to yourself, the more confidently you show up in life. You begin to walk with calm authority. You begin to trust your decisions. You begin to recover from setbacks faster. You begin to feel whole instead of broken. And the relationship you have with yourself becomes your greatest source of strength. Being kind to yourself is not weakness. It is emotional mastery. It is spiritual intelligence. It is the foundation of inner peace. And when your inner voice becomes your ally instead of your enemy, you become unstoppable. 7. Build a life that feels good on the inside, not one that only looks good on the outside. One of the greatest illusions in modern life is the belief that happiness comes from external achievements, social approval, or material success. Many people spend their entire lives trying to build a life that looks perfect to others but feels empty within themselves. They focus on appearances, validation, and outside praise while ignoring the quiet suffering that exists inside their own heart. Buddhism teaches a powerful truth. Inner peace is far more valuable than external perfection, and a life built for display will always collapse under the weight of its own emptiness. True happiness begins only when you start caring more about how your life feels than how your life looks. From a young age, society trains people to chase the wrong things. You are taught to impress others, meet expectations, earn approval, and constantly prove yourself. You begin comparing your life to everyone else's, measuring your worth by standards that do not belong to you. Before long, you lose the ability to recognize what actually brings you peace, joy, and meaning. You forget to ask yourself whether the path you are walking is truly yours or simply borrowed from the world around you. You begin living for applause instead of alignment. And each time you ignore your inner voice to satisfy external expectations, you fall deeper into a life that may look successful but feels painfully hollow. Building a life that feels good on the inside requires deep self-awareness. You must ask yourself difficult but necessary questions. What actually makes me happy? What brings me peace? What drains my energy? What do I do for myself, and what do I do for others' approval? Which dreams are truly mine, and which ones were placed on me by society, family, or fear? Many people avoid these questions because they fear the answers. They fear realizing that the life they are living does not align with who they really are. But ignoring the truth does not protect you, it only prolongs your suffering. When you start prioritizing your inner well-being, your life begins to transform. You stop trying to impress people who barely think about you. You stop chasing relationships that make you feel insecure. You stop forcing yourself into roles that do not fit your spirit. You stop pretending to be happy while suppressing your emotional needs. Instead, you begin choosing habits, environments, and relationships that nourish your soul. You begin building a life that gives you peace, even when nobody is watching. A life that feels good inside is built through small, intentional choices. It begins with listening to your heart and honoring its needs instead of silencing them. It means allowing yourself rest without guilt, choosing simplicity over unnecessary complexity, and embracing authenticity over perfection. It means surrounding yourself with people who uplift your spirit, rather than those who demand you shrink yourself to fit their comfort. It means choosing activities that bring meaning rather than those that merely create distraction. And most importantly, it means allowing yourself to live according to your own values, not the expectations of others. Many people fear choosing an inner-driven life because they worry how others will perceive them. They worry about losing approval, disappointing someone, or appearing less successful. But Buddhism teaches that the opinions of others are temporary and always changing. A person who praises you today may criticize you tomorrow. A society that celebrates you this year may forget you the next. Chasing external validation is like trying to catch the wind. It will never stay in your hands. But the peace you build within yourself will stay with you through every season of life. You must also understand that a peaceful life is not always glamorous. Sometimes it means having fewer friends, but deeper connections. Sometimes it means earning less, but stressing less. Sometimes it means taking a slower path that brings you peace, rather than a fast path that brings you anxiety. Sometimes it means walking away from people who look good on the outside, but disrupt your inner world. Sometimes it means saying no to opportunities that do not align with your values. This may confuse others, but it is not their journey to understand. You are choosing alignment over approval, and that is how true self-love grows. The inner-driven life requires honesty. You must unlearn the idea that your worth depends on achievements, money, beauty, social status, or the admiration of others. You must reconnect with the part of you that existed before the world told you who to be. That part of you knows what truly matters. That part of you knows what brings you peace. That part of you knows what kind of life your soul desires. And when you live from that place, everything begins to feel lighter. Over time, you learn that joy is not found in expensive things, perfect images, or luxurious lifestyles. Joy is found in small, meaningful moments, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, a peaceful cup of tea, a quiet morning where your heart feels calm, laughter shared with someone you trust, the absence of drama, the presence of clarity, the ability to breathe without heaviness, the relief of being yourself without pretending. These moments are invisible to the world, yet they are the true definition of wealth. When you build your life from the inside out, your external world slowly aligns with your internal peace. Opportunities become clearer, relationships become healthier, decisions become easier. Your mind stops fighting itself. Your heart stops begging for validation. You feel grounded, steady, and emotionally free. People start noticing your calm energy, your confidence, your stability. They are drawn to you not because of how you look or what you own, but because of the peace you radiate. That peace is rare in this world and incredibly powerful. And here is the most important truth. When you stop trying to impress people and start living for yourself, the right people naturally appear in your life. People who see you, respect you, value you, and appreciate your authenticity. People who want your presence, not your performance. People who are attracted to your soul, not your status. These are the relationships that nourish you, support you, and help you grow. So build a life that feels nourishing to your spirit. Build a life that brings you peace when you wake up and gratitude before you sleep. Build a life where your inner world is full even if nobody else knows the details. Build a life that your soul recognizes as home. When your inner life becomes your priority, you become unstoppable, not because everything is perfect, but because your foundation is unshakable. In the end, the world sees only a fraction of your life, but you feel every second of it. So make sure the life you are feeling is one that brings you joy, peace, and meaning. Make sure your inner world is a place where your heart feels safe. Make sure your life feels good, truly good on the inside, even if it doesn't always look impressive on the outside. Because a peaceful inner world is worth more than all the applause in the world. 8. Practice radical self-acceptance. Become enough for yourself before seeking anything from the world. One of the deepest forms of self-care in Buddhism is the practice of radical self-acceptance, the ability to look at yourself honestly, gently, and without judgment, and to embrace every part of who you are, even the imperfect, wounded, and unfinished parts. Most people spend their lives trying to become acceptable in the eyes of the world, but rarely do they pause to ask a simple question: am I acceptable in my own eyes? When you do not accept yourself, nothing in the world will ever feel enough. No achievement will feel satisfying, no praise will feel convincing, and no love will feel secure. But when you accept yourself exactly as you are, you unlock a level of inner peace and strength that cannot be shaken by people, circumstances, or time. Radical self-acceptance does not mean giving up on growth. It does not mean staying the same forever or avoiding responsibility. It means learning to stand with yourself even when life is messy. It means recognizing your humanity, your emotions, your limitations, your mistakes, your fears, and meeting them with compassion instead of shame. It means understanding that healing takes time, progress is non-linear, and perfection is impossible. Most people torture themselves mentally because they believe they must earn their worth. They believe they must constantly prove themselves. They believe they must perform at a certain level to deserve love, respect, or peace. Buddhism teaches the opposite. Your worth is intrinsic, not earned. You are enough simply because you exist. When you practice radical self-acceptance, you stop fighting against yourself. You stop punishing yourself for every mistake. You stop replaying your failures as if they define you. You stop comparing your timeline to others. You stop rejecting the parts of you that need the most compassion. Instead, you learn to sit with your emotions, to understand them, and to allow them to soften naturally instead of forcing them to disappear. You learn to treat your pain as a teacher, not an enemy. You learn to embrace your imperfections as parts of your story, not signs of weakness. And you learn to hold yourself gently in moments where you once would have broken yourself with cruelty. Most inner suffering comes from the belief that you should be someone other than who you are right now. You tell yourself you should be stronger, smarter, calmer, richer, more confident, more successful, more loved, more perfect. You carry an internal burden of "I must become more" that never ends. But Buddhism teaches that the real suffering does not come from your flaws, it comes from your resistance to them. When you resist who you are, you create inner conflict. When you fight your emotions, you deepen your pain. When you reject parts of yourself, you split your spirit in half. Radical self-acceptance heals this split. It unifies your inner world. It helps you stop running from yourself and return home to your own heart. A person who accepts themselves becomes emotionally unshakable. When someone criticizes them, they do not collapse because they already know who they are. When someone leaves, they do not fall apart because they have not abandoned themselves. When life becomes difficult, they do not crumble in self-blame because they understand that struggle is part of being human. When they make mistakes, they learn instead of attacking themselves. When they feel pain, they comfort themselves instead of suppressing their emotions. This inner security is what makes a person unstoppable, not perfection, not performance, not approval from others, but inner acceptance. Radical self-acceptance also transforms the way you experience relationships. When you do not accept yourself, you cling to people hoping they will fill the emptiness within you. You become afraid of losing them because you secretly believe you are not enough. You tolerate disrespect because you think you must earn love. You chase validation because you do not feel valuable on your own. But when you accept yourself fully, you stop chasing. You stop begging. You stop tolerating behavior that harms your peace. You realize that anyone who cannot see your worth is simply not aligned with your journey. You choose relationships that feel safe, supportive, and respectful. You no longer fear being alone because you have finally found peace within yourself. Most importantly, radical self-acceptance allows you to finally breathe. It releases pressure. It softens the harsh inner voice. It creates space for healing. It allows you to slow down and live your life from a place of ease instead of fear. It helps you reconnect with your true self, not the self society wants you to be, not the self your past mistakes convinced you are, but the self beneath all those layers, calm, wise, compassionate, capable, and whole. Think of a child learning to walk. They fall dozens of times. They wobble, stumble, and sometimes collapse hard. But no loving parent scolds them for falling. Instead, they encourage them, support them, and celebrate every small attempt. This is the same kindness you must offer yourself. Your inner child still exists within you, trying to navigate life, trying to learn, trying to grow. But instead of encouraging that child, most people scold it. They call themselves failures for falling. They call themselves useless for making mistakes. They call themselves weak for feeling emotions. Radical self-acceptance is treating yourself with the same compassion you would give a child who is doing their best. Another powerful aspect of self-acceptance is releasing the need to constantly fix yourself. Many people live under the belief that they are broken. They spend their lives trying to become someone else, trying to eliminate every flaw, trying to hide every vulnerability. But Buddhism teaches that you are not broken, you are becoming. You are unfolding. You are evolving. You are shedding old identities and stepping into new ones. There is nothing wrong with you for being imperfect. There is something profoundly right about you for continuing to grow despite your imperfections. Self-acceptance also means accepting your past, your mistakes, your regrets, your traumas, your losses, your failures, and your old versions of yourself. Every experience shaped your wisdom. Every hardship shaped your resilience. Every detour shaped your character. You are not who you used to be, but you are also not required to hate who you were. The past version of you did not know what you know now. Instead of judging that version, honor them. They carried you through storms you never thought you'd survive. They made decisions with the limited knowledge and emotional tools they had at the time. Forgive them, thank them, release them, and allow yourself to step forward without dragging old shame behind you. Radical self-acceptance also means accepting your body, its shape, its limitations, its scars, its changes. For many people, the body becomes a source of shame, judgment, or insecurity. But your body is your home. It has carried you through every joy, every pain, every challenge. It breathes for you, heals for you, fights for you, and endures for you. When you stop criticizing it and start appreciating it, you build a deep, loving relationship with yourself that radiates into every area of your life. When you practice self-acceptance consistently, you begin to notice a beautiful shift. Your mind becomes kinder. Your emotional reactions soften. Your fears lose their power. Your inner criticism transforms into inner guidance. Your confidence grows naturally instead of artificially. You start respecting your needs. You start trusting your intuition. You start making decisions that align with your peace. You start choosing environments that feel like nourishment rather than punishment. You start walking through life with a sense of inner stability that nothing can shake. And here is the profound truth. When you finally accept yourself, the world begins to respond differently. People start treating you with more respect because you are no longer broadcasting insecurity. Opportunities begin opening because you are no longer sabotaging yourself with fear. Relationships become healthier because you are showing up from wholeness instead of emptiness. Your energy becomes calm, grounded, and magnetic. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop seeking validation and start giving it to yourself. Radical self-acceptance is not a single event. It is a lifelong practice. Some days you will feel confident. Other days you will doubt yourself. Some days you will feel strong. Other days you will feel fragile. Some days you will feel proud of your progress. Other days you will criticize yourself. This is normal. This is human. Self-acceptance does not require perfection. It requires consistency. Each day, you choose to stand with yourself instead of against yourself. Each day, you choose compassion over judgment. Each day, You choose understanding over punishment. And each day, your inner world becomes a little more peaceful. When you finally become enough for yourself, the world stops having power over your worth. You become your own source of confidence, peace, and love. You stop needing permission to be yourself. You stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. You stop hiding your truth out of fear. You begin living boldly, authentically, and courageously. You begin living from your soul, not your insecurity. And that is the ultimate form of self-care. That is the final step to becoming truly unstoppable. 9. Release the need for constant control. Trust the flow of life and let things happen naturally. One of the greatest sources of human suffering is the desperate need to control everything: people, outcomes, timing, relationships, opportunities, emotions, and even the way life unfolds. This desire for control comes from fear. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of being hurt, fear of being disappointed, and fear of watching life move in directions we cannot predict. Buddhism teaches a profound truth. The more you try to control life, the more life controls you. But the moment you surrender that need for control, you begin to experience peace, clarity, and emotional freedom in ways you never imagined possible. Most people grow up with the belief that they must force everything to work. They believe life will fall apart if they don't constantly push, chase, struggle, or manage everything. They live as if every outcome depends solely on their effort, as if the world is on their shoulders. They wake up with tension, go to sleep worried, and live their days trying to predict every possible scenario. This creates a constant state of anxiety. Your mind becomes exhausted from trying to manage things that were never yours to manage. Your heart becomes tired from holding on to people who were never meant to stay. Your soul becomes overwhelmed from fighting battles that were never meant for you. And slowly, without even noticing it, you begin to lose your connection with inner peace. Releasing the need for control does not mean giving up, becoming passive, or avoiding responsibility. It means understanding the difference between what you can control and what you cannot. You can control your actions, your effort, your intentions, your values, your reactions, and your character. But you cannot control how others behave, how situations unfold, whether people appreciate you, whether opportunities appear, or whether life moves according to your plans. Most suffering comes from mixing these two categories, trying to control the uncontrollable while neglecting the things we can influence: our choices, our habits, our mindset, and our perspective. When you cling tightly to control, you block the natural flow of life. You interrupt the rhythm of the universe. You become so focused on forcing specific outcomes that you fail to see better possibilities unfolding right in front of you. You hold on to people who are trying to leave, chase opportunities that are not aligned with your path, fight situations that are not meant for you, and resist change that is necessary for your growth. And each time you resist, life becomes heavier and more complicated. Buddhism teaches that life moves in cycles: beginnings, endings, expansions, contractions, arrivals, departures, seasons of growth, and seasons of rest. When you try to force life to remain the same, you go against its very nature. You suffocate your own evolution. You interrupt the lessons meant for your soul. You hold yourself back from becoming who you are destined to be. But when you learn to trust the flow of life, you begin to understand that everything is unfolding the way it needs to, even if it does not match your expectations. Letting go of control begins with acceptance. Acceptance is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is recognizing that life does not always go according to your plans, because your plans are based on what you know, while life's plans are based on what you need. Acceptance means allowing situations to be what they are instead of what you wish they were. It means allowing people to act according to their nature instead of trying to change them. It means allowing life to unfold without demanding it follow your script. Acceptance brings immediate peace because it ends the internal war between reality and your expectations. Another powerful aspect of releasing control is trusting timing. Many people suffer deeply because they believe life is moving too slow. They feel behind, impatient, anxious, and frustrated because the things they desire are not happening as quickly as they hoped. But Buddhism teaches that every event has its own timing. Nothing arrives early, nothing arrives late, and nothing that is meant for you will ever pass you by. When something is not happening, it is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that life is still preparing you. You may not be ready yet. The situation may not be ready yet. The people involved may not be ready yet. Delays are not denials, they are alignments. When you surrender control, you begin understanding the deeper intelligence of life. You notice how past events that once hurt you actually protected you. You realize how losing certain people created space for better connections. You recognize how rejections redirected you toward more meaningful paths. You see how your greatest breakthroughs came from situations you never planned or predicted. And slowly, you begin trusting that you do not need to control everything for life to work in your favor. Releasing control also transforms your relationships. When you try to control people, how they love you, how they behave, how they communicate, how they prioritize you, suffocate the relationship. You turn love into pressure. You turn connection into tension. You turn affection into obligation. But when you allow people to show up authentically, you discover who truly belongs in your life. People who love you will stay without being controlled. People who value you will support you without being pushed. People who align with your soul will walk beside you without being chased. Love that requires control is not love, it is fear. Letting go of control helps you accept people as they are, not as you want them to be. You stop trying to change them. You stop trying to fix them. You stop trying to carry emotional burdens that are not yours. Instead, you allow relationships to flow naturally. Those that are aligned with your growth stay effortlessly. Those that are not drift away without chaos. This is not loss, it is purification. Releasing control also gives you mental clarity. When you stop forcing outcomes, your mind becomes lighter. You sleep better. You breathe deeper. You think more clearly. You begin making decisions from wisdom rather than panic. You become more grounded, more patient, and more aligned with your values. Your emotional reactions soften because you are no longer trying to bend life into your desired shape. You accept that some things must fall apart, so better things can rise. You understand that some paths close because new paths are opening. You no longer panic when life changes direction, you trust it. One of the most beautiful effects of releasing control is that your inner strength grows. When you are no longer dependent on specific outcomes for happiness, you become emotionally independent. You stop clinging desperately to situations. You stop breaking down over things you cannot change. You stop fearing the unknown. Instead, you begin to trust your ability to handle whatever comes. You begin to trust your resilience, your wisdom, your intuition, and your capacity to grow through challenges. This inner strength makes you calm, steady, and unshakable. Letting go of control is not something you do once, it is a daily practice. Some days you will feel peaceful and accepting. Other days you will feel anxious and tempted to force everything. That is part of being human. The key is to gently return to trust each time you drift into fear. Over time, this habit becomes a way of living. You begin moving through life with ease instead of tension. You welcome change rather than resisting it. You make decisions with clarity instead of panic. You allow life to unfold instead of fighting its natural rhythm. To practice this habit in everyday life, start by asking yourself 3 simple questions whenever you feel overwhelmed or afraid. Is this within my control? What can I do from a place of wisdom, not fear? What would happen if I trusted life instead of trying to force it? These questions shift your mind from fear to clarity instantly. When you stop trying to control everything, life begins to surprise you. Opportunities appear where you once saw obstacles. Peace enters where there was once chaos. People who match your frequency begin to show up effortlessly. Your days become lighter, your heart becomes softer, and your mind becomes calmer. You begin to understand that life is not something to dominate, it is something to dance with. It guides you, teaches you, expands you, and leads you exactly where you need to be. And here is the ultimate truth. Letting go of control does not mean losing power. It means gaining a higher form of power, the power of trust, acceptance, wisdom, and emotional freedom. When you no longer fear the unknown, you become unstoppable. When you no longer cling to outcomes, you become peaceful. When you no longer force life, you begin flowing with life. And in that flow, you discover a level of strength and clarity you never knew existed. Let life unfold. Let people reveal themselves. Let timing work naturally. Let change transform you. Let endings create openings. Let go and watch peace return to your soul. Because when you release the need for control, life becomes lighter, your heart becomes freer, and you become truly untouchable from within. 10. Choose growth over comfort. Become the version of yourself your future will thank you for. One of the most transformative Buddhist principles is the understanding that true self-love does not always feel gentle, easy, or comfortable. Sometimes self-love requires discomfort, discipline, honesty, and inner confrontation. Most people misunderstand self-care as something soft, warm showers, cozy routines, resting, or treating yourself kindly. But deeper self-care is far more challenging. It is choosing growth over comfort, choosing long-term peace over short-term pleasure, choosing inner transformation over temporary escape. It is making decisions today that your future self will one day look back on with gratitude. Buddhism teaches that comfort is seductive but dangerous. It keeps you stagnant, predictable, and asleep to your potential. Growth is difficult but sacred. It wakes you up, stretches you, challenges you, and transforms you into someone stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. Most people stay stuck in the same emotional cycles, same habits, same relationships, and same patterns because they unconsciously choose comfort over evolution. They cling to familiar pain because unfamiliar healing scares them. They stay in toxic environments because leaving requires courage. They repeat the same destructive habits because growth requires discipline. They hide from their truth because facing it demands honesty. They numb their emotions because feeling them requires strength. But Buddhism reminds us that nothing changes until you choose change, and change rarely comes wrapped in comfort. Choosing growth over comfort means being willing to step into discomfort in order to create a better life. It means waking up early when you would rather sleep in. It means having difficult conversations instead of avoiding them. It means setting boundaries even when people don't like it. It means walking away from relationships that drain your soul, even if your heart is attached. It means healing from old wounds, even when the process is painful. It means facing your fears instead of letting them shape your destiny. It means letting go of the version of yourself you have outgrown. One of the biggest misconceptions about personal growth is that it should feel inspirational. But real growth often feels uncomfortable, uncertain, unfamiliar, and messy. It requires shedding old beliefs, breaking past versions of yourself, and allowing parts of your identity to fall away. This can feel like loss, even if it is transformation. Buddhism teaches that growth is like the process of a snake shedding its skin. As the body expands, the old skin becomes too tight and suffocating. The snake does not cling to its old skin, it sheds it without hesitation. Humans, however, cling to their old identities even when they hurt because they fear what lies beyond. But if you want to grow, you must be willing to let the old version of you die. Choosing growth over comfort requires emotional courage. You must be willing to ask yourself difficult questions. What habits are keeping me small? What patterns am I repeating because they feel familiar? Who am I becoming through my choices? Am I living a life aligned with my highest self, or am I just surviving? What am I afraid to face that is silently controlling my life? Most people never ask these questions because the answers demand change, and change requires responsibility. But responsibility is the highest form of self-respect. It is recognizing that even if something is not your fault, its healing is still your responsibility. In Buddhism, growth is seen as an act of compassion toward yourself. It is not punishment, it is not pressure, it is not self-rejection. It is choosing to evolve because you deserve a life built on clarity, peace, and emotional freedom. Comfort may offer temporary relief, but growth offers permanent transformation. Growth also requires patience. In a world obsessed with speed, people expect instant results. They expect immediate healing, rapid success, quick progress, and immediate answers. But personal evolution does not follow the timeline of society. It follows the timeline of the soul. Some lessons require months, others require years. Some transformations happen quietly, others come through emotional storms. Some breakthroughs arrive suddenly, others build slowly, silently, day by day. Buddhism teaches that a tree does not grow faster because you stand over it demanding results. Growth happens at its own pace, steadily, gently, naturally, yet the roots are always strengthening beneath the surface long before the branches appear above the ground. When you choose growth over comfort, you start to understand that discomfort is not your enemy. It is a signal that you are expanding. It is evidence that you are stepping outside old limits. It is proof that you are breaking through your previous identity. It is a sign that something inside you is awakening. Discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. Every time you choose growth, even when it feels difficult, you align yourself with a future that is stronger, calmer, and more conscious than your past. Growth also requires letting go of the idea that you must be perfect in order to evolve. Many people delay self-improvement because they believe they must wait for the right time, the right mindset, or the right moment. But Buddhism teaches that the path of growth begins exactly where you are, not when you become perfect, not when your life becomes stable, not when you feel ready, but right now, in this moment, with all your imperfections, confusion, and uncertainty. The willingness to begin is more important than the readiness to begin. Your growth will meet you halfway. Choosing growth also means embracing solitude. Growth often requires stepping away from environments that distract you, relationships that drain you, habits that numb you, and voices that silence your intuition. Solitude is not loneliness, it is space. Space for clarity, reflection, healing, and spiritual realignment. When you spend time alone, you hear the truth that gets drowned out by the noise of life. You reconnect with your inner self, and that self becomes your compass. The more you grow, the more you realize that solitude is not something to avoid, it is something to honor. Another essential part of choosing growth is breaking cycles. Everyone carries emotional patterns inherited from childhood scripts of doubt, fear, scarcity, anger, insecurity, people-pleasing, avoidance, or self-sabotage. These patterns repeat in adulthood until you consciously choose to break them. And breaking cycles is painful because it requires doing the exact opposite of what feels familiar. If you grew up suppressing emotions, growth requires learning to express them. If you grew up fearing confrontation, growth requires facing difficult conversations. If you grew up feeling unworthy, growth requires learning to receive love. If you grew up in chaos, growth requires choosing peace even when it feels unfamiliar. Growth demands the courage to rewrite the script of your life. Choosing growth also means choosing your future self over your current impulses. Impulses want comfort, pleasure, distraction, and avoidance. Your future self wants strength, purpose, wisdom, and peace. Every decision you make is either feeding your impulsive self or your future self. When you choose growth consistently, you begin living from the perspective of your future, making choices that honor the person you want to become rather than the person you are trying to leave behind. Over time, choosing growth becomes your natural way of living. You begin to recognize when comfort is limiting you. You begin to notice the subtle pull toward old habits. You begin to catch yourself before repeating destructive patterns. You begin to choose honesty over denial. You begin to choose healing over distraction. You begin to choose courage over fear. And each time you choose growth, your life expands in ways that comfort could never offer. And here is the greatest truth. Life supports those who choose growth. Opportunities appear when you are ready. People enter your life who match your new energy. Your vision becomes clearer. Your mind becomes sharper. Your intuition becomes stronger. You begin attracting experiences that align with your higher path. You begin feeling proud of the person you are becoming. You begin experiencing peace that does not collapse under pressure. Growth rewards you with a life that feels meaningful, authentic, and grounded. Choosing growth over comfort is not easy. It requires patience, discipline, courage, and emotional honesty. It requires leaving behind versions of yourself that once protected you. It requires facing fears you once avoided. It requires stepping into unknown territory. But the reward is extraordinary. You become the version of yourself your future will thank you for. A version that is wise, calm, confident, grounded, compassionate, resilient, and truly alive. Comfort may keep you safe, but growth sets you free. 11. Heal your inner child, free yourself from old wounds, and become whole again. One of the most overlooked yet most transformative forms of self-care in Buddhism is the healing of the inner child, the younger version of you that still exists inside your mind and heart, carrying memories, fears, wounds, and beliefs that silently shape your entire adult life. Most people think they have moved on from their past simply because time has passed. But time does not heal what you refuse to face. The inner child does not disappear. It waits. It waits for acknowledgement. It waits for understanding. It waits for love. And until you meet it with compassion, it will continue influencing your emotions, relationships, reactions, and sense of self-worth. Every person carries an inner child, and that child holds all the impressions from early life experiences of love or lack of love, moments of fear, rejection, abandonment, pressure, humiliation, or emotional neglect. Even if your childhood was not traumatic, there were moments where you felt unheard, unseen, confused, or scared. These experiences create emotional imprints that continue to affect you as an adult. They shape how you trust, how you love, how you respond to challenges, how you handle conflict, how you view your worth, and how you perceive the world. If your inner child learned early that the world was unsafe, you grow up anxious. If your inner child learned that love was inconsistent, you grow up insecure. If your inner child learned that emotions were punished, you grow up emotionally shut down. If your inner child learned that affection must be earned, you grow up people-pleasing. If your inner child learned that mistakes lead to shame, you grow up terrified of failure. If your inner child learned that they were not enough, you grow up struggling with self-worth. Buddhism teaches that awareness is the beginning of liberation. The first step in healing your inner child is recognizing its presence. You must ask yourself, why do certain things trigger me so deeply? Why do I fear abandonment, rejection, or failure? Why do I overreact, shut down, or avoid? Why do I allow certain behaviors from others? Why do I struggle with boundaries? Why do I keep repeating the same patterns? Behind each of these struggles is a younger version of you who learned these responses to survive. Healing your inner child is not about blaming your past. It is about understanding it. It is about going back to the moments where you felt small, scared, or unloved, and giving yourself the care you never received. It is acknowledging the pain without drowning in it. It is letting yourself feel the emotions you suppressed for years. It is breaking the belief systems that were formed by a hurt child, but are still controlling an adult. Many people live with emotional wounds that they have never acknowledged. They think they are simply bad at relationships, too emotional, too sensitive, too distant, or too afraid. But these are not personality flaws. They are protective mechanisms created by the inner child. That younger version of you decided long ago that it was safer to shut down, safer to avoid vulnerability, safer to please others, safer to stay silent, or safer to appear strong. Healing means gently telling your inner child, "You are safe now. You do not need those defenses anymore." One of the most powerful ways to heal the inner child is through honesty. Honesty with yourself about the emotional realities you have avoided. Sit down with yourself and ask, what hurt me the most when I was young? What did I need that I didn't receive? What moments shaped my fear? What voices shaped my self-esteem? What environments taught me to hide? These questions open the doors to self-understanding. You begin to see your adult patterns as responses to childhood wounds, not as signs of weakness. Another profound step is self-forgiveness. Many people carry guilt for things that were never their fault. They blame themselves for not being strong enough, not being brave enough, not being perfect enough, or not being lovable enough. They feel guilty for things they did as a child without understanding that children act through instinct, not wisdom. The child version of you was not supposed to understand everything. They did not deserve blame, they deserved safety. Forgiving your younger self sets you free from emotional burdens you were never meant to carry. Healing your inner child also requires self-compassion. You must learn to comfort yourself during emotional triggers instead of judging yourself. For example, if you feel rejected, instead of saying, "Why am I so sensitive?" you tell yourself, "This pain feels familiar. My inner child is hurting. I will care for them." If you feel afraid of conflict, you do not shame yourself. You gently say, "My inner child learned that conflict meant danger, but I am safe now." Compassion turns emotional reactions into opportunities for healing. Another essential part of inner child healing is rewriting your internal dialogue. Many of the negative beliefs you hold asterisk, "I'm not good enough," "I'm too much," "I don't matter," "I'm unlovable," "I must earn love," "I must be perfect," asterisk did not come from your adult self. They were planted in childhood, but you are no longer that child. You are an adult with wisdom, awareness, and strength that younger you never had. You must teach your inner child new truths. You were always enough. You deserved love, even then. You were never meant to carry those burdens. You are safe now, and I will protect you. You matter more than you realize. As you consistently replace old emotional scripts with compassionate truths, your inner world transforms. You begin to react differently. You begin to trust people more intelligently. You begin to love without fear. You begin to stop chasing love that hurts you. You begin to set boundaries with confidence instead of guilt. You begin to walk away from situations that replicate old wounds. Healing your inner child rewires your emotional patterns, allowing you to live from strength instead of survival. Another powerful part of inner child healing is allowing yourself to reconnect with joy. Many adults forget how to play, laugh, explore, or feel genuine excitement because somewhere along the way, life became too heavy. The inner child remembers joy, imagination, wonder, curiosity, creativity, and innocence. Reconnecting with these things is not childish, it is freeing. It allows you to release emotional rigidity and rediscover parts of yourself that adulthood buried. Whether it's drawing, walking in nature, listening to music, playing with colors, dancing, or simply being silly, these acts nourish the inner child and remind them that life is not only about pain, pressure, or responsibility. Healing the inner child often brings up grief. Grief for the love you didn't receive. Grief for the protection you needed but never got. Grief for the guidance you lacked. Grief for the moments you were hurt. Grief for the innocence that was taken too early. Grief for the version of yourself that carried pain alone. Letting yourself grieve is not weakness, it is release. It frees you from emotional weight you have been silently carrying for years. Once healing begins, your relationships transform. Instead of clinging to unhealthy love out of fear, you seek relationships rooted in safety and mutual respect. Instead of reacting from insecurity, you respond with awareness. Instead of avoiding conflict, you communicate calmly. Instead of pleasing others at the cost of yourself, you honor your needs. Instead of fearing abandonment, you trust that you can handle whatever comes. Your relationships become healthier because they no longer come from a wounded child seeking comfort, but from an emotionally mature adult seeking connection. Healing your inner child does not mean your past disappears. It means your past no longer controls you. It means you stop repeating old patterns. It means you stop choosing partners who resemble emotional wounds. It means you stop sabotaging yourself. It means you stop fearing your emotions. It means you stop obeying the voice of fear. It means you finally stop living through the lens of younger pain. And here is the greatest truth. Healing your inner child makes you whole. Not perfect, not flawless, not always calm or always strong, but whole. Wholeness means you embrace your wounds without letting them define you. Wholeness means you accept your past without allowing it to imprison you. Wholeness means you allow yourself to feel without being controlled by emotions. Wholeness means you finally stop abandoning yourself. Your inner child does not need a perfect adult. You just need to become the adult they always needed. An adult who is compassionate, patient, wise, emotionally present, and protective. An adult who does not ignore pain but sits with it. An adult who does not judge emotions but honors them. An adult who does not run from discomfort but uses it for healing. An adult who chooses love, not the love the world gives, but the love you give to yourself. When you heal your inner child, you heal your entire life. You heal your patterns. You heal your reactions. You heal your relationships. You heal your self-worth. You heal your future. You heal your soul. You become someone who no longer seeks love desperately because you carry love within you. You become someone who no longer fears being left because you never leave yourself. You become someone who no longer attaches to pain because you have learned to comfort your wounds. You become someone who no longer hides their truth because your inner child feels safe in your presence. And that is the greatest act of self-care, becoming the safe place you always needed. 12. Learn the art of being present. Return to the now and free yourself from mental suffering. One of the most powerful Buddhist teachings, and one of the deepest acts of self-care, is learning how to live fully in the present moment. Most people think they are living their lives, but in reality, they are living in their minds, reliving old memories, worrying about the future, imagining worst-case scenarios, replaying past mistakes, or thinking endlessly about things that haven't even happened. Instead of being here, they are trapped in mental timelines. Instead of seeing life clearly, they view it through layers of fear, regret, expectation, and imagination. Buddhism teaches a truth that is simple yet radically transformative. All suffering begins when the mind leaves the present moment, and all peace begins when you return to it. The present moment is the only place where life actually exists. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, only now. But the human mind is rarely in the now. It wanders, races, stresses, analyzes, imagines, predicts, judges, and revisits. It creates emotional storms out of things that are not even happening. It pulls you away from the simplicity of being alive and drags you into mental battles that drain your energy. This is why people feel overwhelmed, even when nothing dangerous is happening. This is why anxiety rises, even when you are physically safe. This is why stress continues, even when the situation has already passed. The mind tries to protect you, but in doing so, it often becomes the very thing that harms you. Learning to be present is not about forcing your mind to stop thinking. It is about gently guiding it back to reality whenever it wanders into unnecessary suffering. It is about reconnecting with your breath, your body, and your immediate experience, instead of living in the stories your mind creates. It is about understanding that life is always happening now, not in the imagined future, not in the remembered past, but in the unfolding moment before you. Being present begins with awareness. Awareness is noticing the moment your mind leaves the now and drifts into fear, regret, or overthinking. When you notice this shift, you do not judge yourself. You gently bring your attention back to your breath, your senses, or your surroundings. It may happen hundreds of times a day, but each return strengthens your inner peace. When you learn to return to the present, your thoughts lose their power to overwhelm you. You realize that most fears exist only in your imagination, most regrets exist only in memory, most worries exist only in expectation. The present moment is usually far less painful than the stories in your mind. Another powerful aspect of presence is learning to slow down. Modern life moves at a pace that disconnects people from themselves. You rush through your mornings, through your conversations, through your meals, and through your days without truly experiencing any of it. You become a machine moving from task to task, never stopping to breathe deeply, feel your emotions, or appreciate your existence. When you rush, you create anxiety. When you slow down, you create clarity. Slowing down helps you return to your body, notice your thoughts, and reconnect with your senses. When you move through life slowly and mindfully, your stress decreases, your awareness increases, and your emotional balance begins to restore itself naturally. Presence also requires gratitude. Gratitude brings your mind into the now by shifting your focus from what is missing to what is already here. Most people suffer because they are always thinking about what they lack. Lack of love, lack of success, lack of peace, lack of approval, lack of certainty. But when you practice gratitude, you begin noticing the countless blessings around you that you once overlooked. The warmth of sunlight, the ability to breathe, the quiet moments of peace, the kindness of a loved one, the beauty of a small moment. Gratitude brings you back into your heart. It softens your restless mind. It reminds you that life is not a race, it is a series of moments, each one precious, each one temporary, each one worth experiencing fully. Being present also means letting go of the illusion of control. Much of your mental suffering comes from trying to control outcomes, people, or the future. The mind wants certainty, but life offers unpredictability. The more you try to force life into your desired shape, the more resistance you feel. The more resistance you feel, the more suffering you create. Presence is the surrender of this resistance. It is the understanding that life unfolds according to its own rhythm. When you stop fighting the flow and start trusting it, your mind settles naturally. You stop trying to solve problems that do not exist. You stop trying to predict things you cannot know. You stop clinging to expectations that create disappointment. You begin to relax into the present moment with a sense of peace and acceptance. Presence is also deeply tied to emotional healing. Most emotional pain comes from either remembering the past or fearing the future. When you return to the present moment, the intensity of your suffering decreases. For example, grief lives in the memory of what was lost. Anxiety lives in the fear of what might happen. Shame lives in the past. Worry lives in the future. But in the present moment, when you bring your full attention to your breath, your surroundings, or your body, these emotions soften. They lose their power to control you. The present moment is like a safe space, a sanctuary, a still lake where your mind can rest. Each time you come back to it, your emotional suffering slowly begins to dissolve. Another essential part of learning to be present is reconnecting with your body. The body is always here, the breath is always here, the senses are always here. The body does not live in memories or predictions, it lives in now. This makes it your anchor, your doorway back to presence. When your mind becomes chaotic, instead of fighting it, you gently return your awareness to your breath. You feel the air entering and leaving your lungs. You notice the rise and fall of your chest. You feel your feet on the ground. You listen to the sounds around you. You become aware of the temperature of the air. These simple acts bring your awareness out of your thoughts and into your experience. This is not meditation, it is grounding. It is the art of coming home to yourself. Presence also strengthens your relationships. When you are truly present with someone, listening deeply, paying attention, offering your full awareness, you create connection. Most people do not listen. They wait to speak. Most people do not see others. They see their own fears and judgments. Presence allows you to see people clearly, without projecting your past or your insecurities onto them. This builds deeper trust, kindness, and emotional intimacy. It makes you a calmer friend, a kinder partner, a more compassionate human being. The more present you are with others, the more present they feel in your company. Presence helps you release perfectionism. Perfectionism is rooted in the future, the desire to avoid failure, avoid judgment, or achieve an unrealistic ideal. When you return to the present moment, perfection becomes unnecessary. You no longer need to prove anything. You no longer need to impress anyone. You simply do the task in front of you with full awareness. When you focus on the step instead of the entire journey, your anxiety disappears. When you focus on the breath instead of the entire day, your overwhelm fades. When you focus on the moment instead of the entire future, your fear softens. Presence also restores your inner peace. Peace is not something you chase. It is something you access when your mind is no longer arguing with reality. When you accept the moment as it is without wishing it were different, you feel a calmness that cannot be manufactured. You realize that most things are not as heavy as your mind makes them. You understand that life becomes painful only when you resist the now. When you surrender resistance, peace flows into your heart like water into an empty cup. Learning the art of presence also requires practicing non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean indifference or emotional coldness. It means allowing life to flow without clinging or grasping. It means appreciating the moment without fearing its end. It means loving deeply without trying to possess. It means working hard without forcing outcomes. It means trusting life without demanding guarantees. Non-attachment creates emotional freedom. It allows you to experience everything fully while remaining centered, grounded, and at peace. One of the most beautiful effects of presence is the clarity it brings. When your mind stops spinning, your intuition becomes stronger. You begin seeing solutions you once overlooked. You begin understanding what truly matters. You begin hearing the quiet wisdom inside you. The present moment is where clarity lives. When you are mentally scattered, everything feels confusing. When you are present, everything becomes simple. And here is the deepest truth. Being present is not about changing the world around you. It is about changing your relationship with your mind. When you learn to anchor yourself in the now, your entire internal world transforms. You stop suffering twice, once in reality and once in your imagination. You stop replaying old pain. You stop anticipating future pain. You begin to live life as it is, not as your fear interprets it. Presence is the ultimate act of self-love. It is choosing to live, not just exist. It is choosing to feel, not just think. It is choosing to experience life rather than escape it. It is choosing to be here, not trapped in what was, not trapped in what might be, but fully alive in the moment before you. When you master presence, even ordinary moments become profound. A deep breath becomes calming. A quiet moment becomes healing. A small step becomes meaningful. Life becomes lighter because you are no longer carrying the weight of the entire past or the entire future. You are simply carrying this moment, and this moment is always manageable. To be present is to be free. To be present is to be alive. To be present is to be at peace. And once you learn the art of being present, your life will never be the same. 14. Cleanse your mind from negative self-stories. Rewrite the narrative you live by. One of the most powerful yet most misunderstood forms of self-care in Buddhism is learning to free yourself from the negative stories you tell yourself. Stories created by fear, past wounds, societal expectations, emotional trauma, and old mental programming. These stories silently shape your identity, influence your choices, limit your potential, and determine how you see yourself. Most people do not even realize that they are living inside a narrative they never consciously chose. They believe their thoughts, even when those thoughts are self-destructive. They believe their fears, even when those fears are outdated. They believe their limitations, even when those limitations were created years ago under circumstances that no longer exist. Buddhism teaches a profound spiritual truth. You do not live in the world, you live in the story you tell yourself about the world. And you do not live as who you are, you live as who you believe yourself to be. Every person carries an inner narrative. Some carry stories of strength. Some carry stories of hope. Some carry stories of resilience. But many carry stories of fear. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. I'm too broken to be loved. I don't deserve happiness. I will always be alone. I'm not capable. I'm a failure. I'm behind in life. I can't change. I don't matter. These stories are not facts. They are emotional memories that have hardened into beliefs. They were formed when you were young, vulnerable, hurt, confused, or unsupported. They were shaped by environments where you were not seen, by people who misunderstood you, and by moments where you felt powerless. The mind absorbed these experiences and turned them into narratives about who you are. But Buddhism teaches that these stories are illusions, echoes of the past, pretending to be the truth of the present. They exist only in your mind, not in reality. And the moment you begin questioning them, the moment you begin rewriting them, your entire life begins to transform. Negative self-stories trap you in cycles without you even realizing it. For example, if your story is, "I'm not worthy of love," you unconsciously choose relationships that reflect that belief. If your story is, "I always fail," you sabotage yourself before you even begin. If your story is, "I'm not strong," you avoid challenges that could help you grow. If your story is, "I'm alone," you isolate yourself and then feel lonely. Your story becomes your prison, and you unknowingly become both the prisoner and the guard. The first step in cleansing the mind is awareness. You must become aware of the stories you repeat internally. Observe the thoughts that appear when you make a mistake, when you feel rejected, when someone ignores you, when life becomes difficult, or when you step outside your comfort zone. What do you tell yourself in those moments? That voice reveals the story you carry. Awareness is painful, but it is also liberating, because once you see the story, you can change it. You can rewrite the narrative. You can reclaim your inner truth. The second step is understanding that your story is not you. It is a mental habit, a residue of past emotions. But you are the awareness behind the story. You are the observer, not the voice. You are the consciousness, not the conditioning. When you separate your identity from the story begins to lose its power. It becomes something you can look at objectively rather than something you blindly believe. Buddhism calls this non-identification, the ability to witness your thoughts without merging with them. This is the beginning of inner freedom. The third step in cleansing your mental narrative is questioning your beliefs. Ask yourself, where did this story come from? Who gave it to me? Is it even true? Does it belong to the present or the past? Is it based on fear or fact? Is it helping me grow or holding me back? Most negative stories collapse the moment they are questioned. They crumble because they were never built on truth, they were built on emotion. They were born from moments where you were hurt, rejected, scared, embarrassed, or unsupported. But you are no longer that person. You are stronger now, wiser now, more aware now. You must remind your mind that the story was written by a past version of you who did not have the strength, knowledge, or emotional tools you have today. The fourth step is rewriting the story. This is where healing begins. You must replace the old narrative with one that is rooted in truth, compassion, and empowerment. Instead of, "I'm not good enough," you redefine it as, "I am growing and becoming better every day." Instead of, "I always fail," you tell yourself, "Every setback teaches me something valuable." Instead of, "I am unlovable," you declare, "I deserve love and I am capable of giving it." Instead of, "I am alone," you say, "I am learning to support myself and I attract healthy connections." The story must shift from self-judgment to self-compassion, from fear to understanding, from limitation to possibility. Rewriting does not mean lying to yourself. It means telling yourself the truth your wounded mind could not see before. Negative stories are distortions. Positive stories are corrections. They reflect the reality that you are evolving, learning, and capable of changing the direction of your life. Another essential part of cleansing the mind is emotional release. Negative stories stay alive because they are fueled by suppressed emotion, anger, fear, sadness, guilt, shame, or disappointment. When you allow yourself to feel these emotions instead of avoiding them, the story loses its emotional energy. You might cry, journal, meditate, or simply sit with your feelings. This emotional release does not make you weak, it makes you free. The pain you avoid becomes the prison. The pain you face becomes the door out. The fifth step is compassion. You must speak to yourself with the softness you never received. Your mind has repeated negative stories for years, maybe decades. It will not change overnight. You must be gentle with yourself. You must treat yourself as someone healing, not someone failing. Each time an old story appears, you meet it with compassion, not self-criticism. Compassion rewires the brain. It teaches your mind that it no longer needs to attack itself. It allows your inner world to soften. Another powerful practice is mindfulness. When you are mindful, you become aware of the story the moment it appears. You catch the narrative before it takes control. You stop reacting automatically. You respond with awareness. You break the cycle in real time. Mindfulness transforms unconscious patterns into conscious choices. This is how you reclaim your power from the story. Presence also plays a major role. Negative stories exist either in the past or the imagined future. They do not exist in the present moment. When you return to the now, your breath, your sensations, the world around you, the story loses its grip. The present moment becomes your anchor, your refuge, your truth. Healing your self-story also changes your relationships. When you stop believing, "I am unworthy," you stop tolerating relationships that reflect that belief. When you stop believing, "I must please others to be loved," you create boundaries effortlessly. When you stop believing, "Everyone leaves me," you stop clinging to people out of fear. When your inner narrative changes, the people you attract and the relationships you form change as well. Your story shapes your energy. Your energy shapes your connections. Another part of this healing is letting go of the pressure to be perfect. Perfectionism is often a response to a deeper story. I'm not enough as I am. But when you accept that you are allowed to make mistakes, allowed to rest, allowed to be human, allowed to grow slowly, you create space within yourself. That space is where peace begins. That space is where healing happens. To cleanse your mind from negative narratives, you must also practice detachment from the opinions of others. Many of your self-stories were formed by external voices, parents, teachers, peers, society, culture, or painful experiences with people who projected their insecurities onto you. Their opinions are not your truth. Their judgment is not your identity. Their expectations are not your responsibility. Once you detach from external voices, your internal voice becomes clearer. You begin to hear your authentic self. The final step is living according to your new story. This requires consistency, courage, and conscious choice. You must act in alignment with the narrative you want to embody. If your new story is, I am worthy, you must make choices that reflect worthiness. If your new story is, I am strong, you must face challenges with resilience. If your new story is, I am capable, you must take steps toward your goals. If your new story is, I am enough, you must stop chasing validation. Your actions reinforce your identity. Your identity reinforces your story. And your story reinforces your reality. When you cleanse your mind from old narratives, your life begins to feel lighter. Your reactions become calmer. Your fears become softer. Your confidence grows naturally. Your inner world becomes peaceful. You stop being at war with yourself. You stop interpreting everything through the lens of pain. You stop replaying old wounds. You stop shrinking to fit outdated beliefs. You finally begin to live not as the version of you shaped by trauma, but as the version of you shaped by truth, wisdom, and inner clarity. Your story is not fixed. It is not permanent. It is not the final chapter. You have the power to rewrite it. You have the power to heal it. You have the power to transform it into something beautiful. And once you rewrite your story, you rewrite your life. Human needs. You must first understand them. Emotional needs are not weaknesses. They are fundamental human requirements that ensure you feel safe, loved, valued, respected, and connected. These needs include the need for affection, support, communication, rest, validation, honesty, boundaries, space, reassurance, and understanding. When your needs are ignored repeatedly, your heart begins to feel heavy, your mind becomes anxious, and your sense of self-worth weakens. When your needs are honored consistently, you feel balanced, calm, and emotionally healthy. Honoring your emotional needs begins with permission, giving yourself permission to feel. Most people are afraid of their emotions because they believe emotions make them weak. But Buddhism teaches that emotional awareness is a form of wisdom. It means you are conscious of your inner world. It means you are connected to yourself. It means you are alive. Your emotions are not enemies, they are messengers. Sadness tells you that something meaningful needs attention. Anger tells you a boundary was crossed. Fear tells you that you need reassurance or preparation. Loneliness tells you that you crave connection. Exhaustion tells you that you need rest. Emotions become harmful only when you suppress them. When you honor them, they guide you toward healing. The second step in honoring your emotional needs is learning to identify them without judgment. Sit with yourself and ask, what am I truly feeling? What do I need right now? What am I afraid to admit? Am I tired? Am I overwhelmed? Am I hurting? Am I craving affection? Am I craving space? Am I craving support? Am I craving peace? What emotion am I avoiding? Why am I avoiding it? These questions open the doorway to self-understanding. They help you reconnect with the parts of yourself you have ignored for too long. The third step is expressing your needs honestly, not through anger, not through silence, but through clarity. Many relationships suffer not because people don't care, but because people don't communicate. You cannot expect others to meet needs you refuse to express. If you need respect, say it. If you need understanding, explain it. If you need reassurance, ask for it. If you need space, communicate it. If you need honesty, request it. Your needs are not too much. Your silence is what damages you. Buddhism teaches that communication done gently, truthfully, and mindfully leads to harmony. But many people fear expressing their needs because they are afraid of how others will react. They fear being called needy, too emotional, or difficult. They fear losing relationships. They fear disappointing others. But abandoning yourself is worse than losing anyone. No relationship is healthy if it requires you to betray your emotional truth. When you suppress your needs to keep someone, you lose yourself in the process. When you honor your needs, you attract people who respect them. Another crucial part of honoring your emotional needs is learning to set boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are spiritual protection. They define what is acceptable and what is not. They define how you want to be treated. They define what energy you allow into your life. Without boundaries, your emotions become overwhelmed, your energy becomes drained, and your inner peace becomes fragile. Setting boundaries is not selfish, it is survival. It is self-respect. It is emotional maturity. It is love directed inward. Honoring your emotional needs also requires learning to walk away. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to leave situations that repeatedly hurt your peace. Not every relationship is meant to stay. Not every environment is meant to hold you. Not every person is capable of meeting your emotional needs. Staying in places that constantly harm you is not loyalty. It is self-abandonment. Walking away is not weakness. It is self-honoring. It is choosing inner harmony over external attachment. Another essential part of honoring your emotional needs is rest. Modern society glorifies burnout. People wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. They call it working hard or being productive. But a tired mind cannot think clearly, a tired heart cannot love deeply, and a tired soul cannot grow. Rest is not laziness, it is nourishment. It is emotional maintenance. It is an act of self-care. Your nervous system requires rest. Your mind requires silence. Your emotions require space. Your heart requires softness. When you rest, you are not stopping, you are strengthening. You must also learn to forgive yourself for having emotions. Forgive yourself for crying. Forgive yourself for being sensitive. Forgive yourself for needing connection. Forgive yourself for needing reassurance. Forgive yourself for feeling overwhelmed. Forgive yourself for not being strong all the time. Forgive yourself for being human. Self-forgiveness is one of the purest forms of emotional healing. It teaches your heart that it is safe to feel. Another powerful practice is emotional reparenting. Many emotional needs were not met in childhood, not because your caregivers were bad people, but because they lacked emotional tools themselves. Emotional reparenting means becoming the adult you needed when you were young. It means comforting yourself when you feel scared. It means encouraging yourself when you feel doubt. It means validating your feelings instead of dismissing them. It means creating emotional safety for yourself instead of waiting for others to provide it. You learn to care for yourself with gentleness rather than criticism. Another essential aspect of honoring your emotional needs is reducing exposure to emotional noise. Many people stay emotionally overwhelmed because they stay connected to negativity, gossip, arguments, unhealthy friendships, draining environments, or constant stimulation from social media. These things overload your nervous system. They weaken your emotional resilience. They make your inner world chaotic. Protecting your emotional space is a form of self-care. You have the right to choose what enters your mind and heart. You must also learn to sit with your emotions instead of running from them. When you avoid emotions, they grow stronger. When you face them, they soften. Sit with your sadness without judging it. Sit with your fear without shaming it. Sit with your anger without rejecting it. Sit with your confusion without panicking. Emotions are waves, they rise, peak, and fall. When you honor them, they pass naturally. When you fight them, they intensify. Emotional strength is not the absence of emotion, it is the ability to hold emotion without losing yourself. Honoring your emotional needs will change your relationships. You will begin to choose people who respect your boundaries, listen to your feelings, communicate with care, and value your peace. You will stop attracting people who use your kindness, manipulate your softness, or take advantage of your silence. You will stop accepting relationships that drain you. You will stop pleasing people who never reciprocate. You will stop giving energy to those who do not value it. Your emotional needs become your compass, guiding you toward healthier connections. Most importantly, honoring your emotional needs reconnects you with yourself. Many people feel disconnected from their own heart because they have spent years ignoring their inner world. When you begin listening to yourself again, something beautiful happens. Your intuition becomes stronger. Your decisions become clearer. Your confidence increases. Your self-respect grows. You begin to trust your inner voice. You begin to value your emotional well-being. You begin to feel whole. And here is the deepest truth. No one can honor your emotional needs if you do not honor them first. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. You set the standard for how others enter your life. When you honor your needs, you no longer tolerate disrespect. You no longer settle for crumbs. You no longer remain silent in the face of harm. You no longer betray yourself for love. You begin living with emotional integrity, with a heart that is aligned, protected, and respected. Honoring your emotional needs is not selfishness. It is spiritual hygiene. It prevents emotional burnout. It prevents inner conflict. It prevents resentment. It prevents regret. It brings balance, clarity, and harmony into your inner world. And when your inner world is aligned, your outer world follows. This is what it means to love yourself, not through empty affirmations, but through daily acts of emotional honesty, emotional protection, and emotional responsibility. To honor your emotional needs is to say to yourself, my heart matters, my mind matters, my well-being matters, my peace matters. This is not arrogance, it is awakening. When you finally stop betraying your emotional truth, you begin living a life where your soul feels safe, your heart feels heard, your emotions feel respected, and your inner world becomes a sanctuary rather than a battlefield. That is true self-love. That is true strength. That is true inner harmony. 16. Detach from external validation. Build inner confidence that cannot be broken by anyone. One of the most liberating forms of self-care in Buddhism is learning to detach from external validation and build a relationship with yourself so strong that no one's approval or rejection can shake your inner peace. Most people live their lives imprisoned by the opinions of others. They shape their personality around what is socially acceptable. They hide their true desires to avoid criticism. They pursue goals, not because they want them, but because others expect them to. They crave praise and fear judgment. They constantly wonder what people think of them, how they look, how they sound, whether they are enough. This constant hunger for validation becomes emotional slavery. Buddhism teaches a higher truth. Freedom begins the moment you stop needing the world to approve of your existence, and inner confidence begins when your sense of worth comes from within, not from outside. Human beings naturally want to be loved, accepted, respected, and appreciated. These desires are not wrong, but the problem begins when the desire turns into dependence, when your happiness depends on whether someone likes you, when your decisions depend on whether others approve, when your self-worth rises and falls based on praise or criticism, when your confidence crumbles the moment someone disapproves. Living like this is exhausting because your sense of self becomes a reflection of the unstable, ever-changing opinions of others. Detaching from external validation does not mean rejecting people or becoming emotionless. It does not mean you stop caring about kindness or connection. It simply means you stop basing your identity on the reactions of the outside world. You stop giving strangers the power to define your worth. You stop allowing other people's behavior to dictate how you feel about yourself. You stop treating external approval as necessary for inner peace. Most people's need for validation comes from childhood wounds. As children, you needed approval from caregivers to feel safe. You learned that affection came when you behaved a certain way. You learned that being good earned praise. You learned that being different or emotional or imperfect earned criticism. Slowly, you began shaping your identity around what pleased others rather than what expressed your truth. You learned to suppress parts of yourself to avoid rejection. This conditioning followed you into adulthood, where you continued searching for the same emotional safety in the form of validation, admiration, and acceptance. If approval shaped your childhood, absence of approval can shape your adult fears. People fear being disliked because it triggers a deeper emotional wound, one that whispers, "If they don't like me, maybe I'm not enough." But Buddhism teaches a revolutionary truth. Being disliked is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of someone else's perspective, conditioning, preferences, insecurities, or emotional limitations. You cannot control the minds of others, and you do not need to. To detach from external validation, the first step is recognizing when your decisions are driven by fear of judgment rather than your authentic self. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it feels true to me or because I want approval? Am I saying yes because I care or because I fear disappointing someone? Am I holding back my feelings because I am afraid of being misunderstood? Am I staying quiet to keep the peace while betraying my own peace? Am I choosing a life path because it inspires me or because it impresses others? These questions reveal where you are living as a performer instead of a true self. The second step is practicing emotional independence. Emotional independence does not mean you become cold or detached. It means you stop relying on outside praise to feel confident. It means you appreciate validation when it comes, but you don't crumble when it doesn't. It means your mood does not depend on whether someone compliments you or criticizes you. It means your self-worth stays stable even when the world is unstable. Emotional independence is not rejecting love. It is not depending on it to survive. The third step is understanding the nature of opinions. People do not see you as you are, they see you as they are. Their judgments come from their upbringing, insecurities, fears, projections, morals, preferences, biases, trauma, and worldview. This means that no matter what you do, someone will misunderstand you. Someone will dislike you. Someone will misjudge you. Someone will criticize you unfairly. You cannot live peacefully if you are trying to control something that cannot be controlled. Buddhism teaches that opinions are like passing clouds. They are temporary illusions created by the mind. If you do not cling to them, they cannot cause suffering. The fourth step is redefining self-worth. Most people think self-worth comes from achievements, appearance, popularity, money, knowledge, or social approval. But these things are unstable, they can change at any moment. When your worth depends on external things, you live in fear of losing them. True self-worth comes from your inner qualities, your compassion, your discipline, your honesty, your kindness, your ability to grow, your courage to face yourself, your intention to do good. When you recognize your inner worth, external validation becomes irrelevant. You no longer chase approval because you already carry acceptance within. The fifth step is embracing authenticity, even when it is uncomfortable. Authenticity is not about being perfect, it is about being real. It is about expressing your feelings truthfully, setting boundaries, following your own path, choosing what nourishes your soul, and being honest with yourself. Authenticity will repel some people, but it will attract the right ones, those who respect your truth, value your presence, and walk with you out of genuine connection, not out of convenience. When you hide your true self, the world loves a version of you that does not exist. When you honor your true self, you attract relationships that are real. Another powerful part of detaching from validation is learning to tolerate being misunderstood. This is one of the hardest lessons for the human ego. The ego wants to explain itself, defend itself, justify itself, prove itself. But trying to control what others think becomes a lifelong battle with no peace. You must learn to allow misunderstanding without losing yourself. You must learn to allow disapproval without feeling inferior. You must learn to allow judgment without believing it. You must learn to stand firm in your truth even when others do not understand it. No one sees your intentions, your heart, your inner battles, or your silent growth. Only you know your truth, and that is enough. Another essential step in freeing yourself from validation is setting boundaries without guilt. People who depend on external approval often struggle to say no. They fear conflict, they fear disappointment, they fear losing relationships. But every time you say yes when your heart says no, you trade your peace for temporary approval. Boundaries protect your energy. Boundaries protect your mental health. Boundaries protect your emotional world. When you set boundaries, you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You stop being controlled by others and begin guiding your own life. Another part of detaching from validation is embracing solitude. Many people cling to validation because they fear being alone. They fear being left with their own thoughts. They fear facing their inner emptiness. But solitude is not emptiness, it is space. Space for self-discovery, space for clarity, space for healing, space for reconnecting with your true self. When you learn to enjoy your own company, external approval loses its power over you. When you accept yourself, you no longer chase those who don't. When you become whole alone, you stop begging for pieces of love from others. A major part of this journey is healing the wounded inner child, the part of you that still seeks praise because it never received unconditional acceptance. That child inside you still wants to hear, "You're enough. I'm proud of you. I see you. I care about you." But you must give that validation to yourself. Your adult self must become the source of love that was missing. Your adult self must become the voice that says, "You matter. You are worthy. You do not need to earn love. You do not need to prove your value." This internal shift breaks the dependence on external validation. Another deep practice is replacing self-criticism with self-compassion. People who rely on validation often have a harsh inner voice. They criticize themselves before others can criticize them. They judge themselves relentlessly. They pressure themselves to be perfect. But self-compassion teaches you to speak to yourself with kindness instead of hostility. It teaches you to comfort yourself instead of attacking yourself. It teaches you to forgive yourself instead of punishing yourself. When you become your own safe space, you stop seeking safety in others. Ultimately, detaching from validation allows you to live a life that is aligned with your truth rather than influenced by your fears. You begin making decisions based on what feels right, not what looks right. You begin choosing relationships based on emotional nourishment, not approval. You begin pursuing goals based on purpose, not external applause. You begin speaking from honesty, not insecurity. You begin acting from freedom, not fear. And here is the most profound truth. Once you stop needing validation, you become magnetic. People respect those who are rooted in themselves. People admire those who are authentic. People are drawn to those who are emotionally independent. People trust those who are not desperate for acceptance. The less you need validation, the more powerful your energy becomes. The less you seek approval, the more aligned your life becomes. The less you chase acceptance, the more naturally it comes. Detaching from external validation is not a single act, it is a lifelong practice. Some days you will feel confident. Some days you will feel insecure. Some days you will care about opinions. Some days you won't. This is normal. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. The goal is progress. The goal is inner stability. The goal is to choose yourself again and again, even when it feels difficult. When you finally stop needing the world to validate you, something incredible happens. You return home to yourself. You rediscover your own voice. You reclaim your own power. You rebuild your self-worth. You feel peace not because the world loves you, but because you love yourself. That is true confidence. That is true inner strength. That is true freedom. As you reach the end of this journey through these powerful Buddhist self-care habits, I want you to take a moment and truly breathe. Not the quick, shallow breath you take when you're distracted, but a deep breath that reaches into the quiet spaces of your soul. Because everything you have learned in these lessons is not just information, it is transformation. It is an invitation to return to yourself, to reconnect with the forgotten parts of your heart, to rebuild the inner foundation that life may have shaken, and to step into a version of yourself that is strong, calm, loving, and unconditionally grounded in self-worth. Throughout these lessons, you have explored truths that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You've learned that self-care is not indulgence, it is responsibility. It is the internal work that protects your heart from breaking under pressure. It is the emotional maintenance that keeps your spirit alive when life becomes difficult. You've learned that the greatest form of love you will ever experience is the love you give to yourself through your choices, habits, boundaries, healing, self-respect, and awareness. You've learned that treating yourself like someone worth taking care of is not selfish, it is an act of spiritual integrity. Because when you honor your needs, you stop living on emotional leftovers. You stop begging the world to give you what you can give yourself. You stop allowing people to walk into your life and rearrange your inner peace. You become your own home, safe, stable, loving, firm. You've learned that being present is not simply a relaxation technique. It is liberation from the endless suffering created by your mind. The past cannot hurt you unless you are still living in it. The future cannot scare you unless you are already imagining it. Peace lives in the now, and when you learn to return to this moment again and again, you free yourself from the noise that has tormented you internally for years. You've learned that healing your inner child is not a luxury, it is a necessity. You cannot build a peaceful life on top of unhealed wounds. You cannot rise into maturity while parts of you are still hurting in silence. When you comfort your inner child, forgive them, speak gently to them, and protect them, you reclaim the pieces of yourself you lost along the way. You become whole again. You've learned that honoring your emotional needs is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is understanding that your heart has limits, your mind needs rest, your soul requires alignment, and your energy deserves protection. Emotional honesty is the door to emotional freedom. Every time you tell yourself the truth, even when it is uncomfortable, you create space for healing to grow. You've learned that detaching from external validation is the doorway to true confidence. You cannot build a stable life on unstable approval. You cannot feel secure when your worth depends on how others see you. When you stop chasing praise and start embodying authenticity, you become unshakable. People no longer hold power over your self-worth. Their opinions lose the ability to control your emotions. You walk through life grounded in your own truth. You've learned that cleansing your mind from old stories is what frees you from invisible chains, chains that have quietly shaped your beliefs, fears, and behaviors for years. When you rewrite the narrative you live by, you rewrite your destiny. You stop repeating cycles that began long before you even understood what was happening. You begin living as the healed version of yourself rather than the wounded version. Across all these lessons, the message remains the same. True self-love is not soft, it is strong. It is not loud, it is steady. It is not temporary, it is lifelong. It is the daily commitment to becoming someone emotionally mature, spiritually grounded, mentally aware, and deeply compassionate toward yourself. This journey is not about becoming perfect. Perfection was never the goal. The goal is presence. The goal is peace. The goal is growth. The goal is wholeness. The goal is inner alignment. The goal is remembering who you truly are beneath all the conditioning, fear, self-doubt, and emotional noise. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not unworthy. You are not too much. You are not too little. You are becoming. And becoming is a sacred process. As you move forward from this video, carry these truths gently but firmly within you. Let them guide how you speak to yourself. Let them shape how you treat yourself. Let them influence the decisions you make, the relationships you allow, the emotions you honor, and the boundaries you set. Let them remind you that self-love is not a destination. It is a practice, a lifestyle, a path you choose every day. Some days you will feel strong. Some days you will feel fragile. Some days you will feel peaceful. Some days you will feel overwhelmed. But no matter what the day brings, you now have the tools, the awareness, and the spiritual clarity to return to yourself, to come home to your breath, your truth, your emotional needs, your healing, and the present moment. And that is what will make you unstoppable, not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger, wiser, calmer, and more aligned with who you are meant to be. You will rise, you will grow, you will heal, you will love yourself. And when you love yourself deeply, the world feels different, not because the world changed, but because you did. Carry this peace with you. Carry this strength with you. Carry this love with you. Your journey is just beginning, beautifully, powerfully, quietly within you.